So why do a podcast? Why launch your own podcast? There are thousands of podcasts out there, right? Thousands of them. But the truth is there's even more blogs, like 10 times as many blogs as there are audio podcasts. Now, blogs are great. If you have a couple of minutes, you can go on and read content from an individual, underground content from people of different walks of life, different parts of the world. But the thing about podcast is it allows you to multitask, right? So with a blog, I have to sit there and read it physically. With a podcast, I can just download it and I can go for a run. I can listen while I'm working. I can listen while I'm working out at the gym, while I'm driving my car or biking to work, whatever it may be, right? You can be cleaning your house listening to a podcast. You can be multitasking. Be on a plane, train, driving. It's just more convenient to be able to listen to content sometimes than it is to sit there and physically read it. Now, why should you launch a podcast? There are thousands of podcasts, and not all of them are going to be profitable or make lots of money. And that's not the only reason to start a podcast. It's not necessarily about making money. You can make a podcast as a hobby and just share your knowledge and expertise about something, some topic that you're passionate about, that other people might be interested in. And it's a way you could share your ideas, your experience with others and entertain people. And it's also, in some cases, an opportunity to bring on guests and share ideas with the interview podcast. So why do a podcast? So you can share your thoughts and ideas or your passion with people who may have a similar passion and entertain them at the same time. So that's why you should consider doing a podcast. Now, it seems like a simple concept, but it can get very, very complicated. And there are many different ways to do a podcast and many different levels of podcasting quality. It can get more sophisticated with video, choosing your audio. If you're going to do an interview, it gets much more complicated, making sure that both voices are in sync and their volumes are similar with different mics and different locations. So it can get very complex, but it can also be extremely simple and free. I've had people ask, well, how much does it cost to launch a podcast? And the cool thing is today, it's free. There is no cost. However, the cost could be very expensive if you waste money on software, technology, and hardware that you may not need. Also, it could cost you a lot of time and headaches. And you may not get off and launch. And if you don't do it in a way that it seems somewhat professional, like you kind of know what you're doing, if you don't do it in a way like that, then people are probably going to be less likely to listen to it. You need some level of professionalism. But the cool thing is there's tools that make it extremely easy. And so instead of going through years of headaches like I did, trying to figure it out on my own, I can actually help you get started. Very inexpensive. Happy to give you a free introduction on how to get started. You can set up just a quick 15-minute conversation with me. I'll give you a breakdown on how to get your podcast started. And then if you want to invest just a little bit more time for a very, very low fee, a very low cost consulting fee, I'll guide you a little bit more, really get you off started with your hobbyist podcast for a small amount of investment that will save you a lot of time. And so you can just put your information down in the form below. And I really want to know why you're doing the podcast, what the topic's about. I'm not going to do this for everybody. It's really important, the reason behind your podcast, the topic and what it's for, why you're doing it. Because if you don't really have a big why, a real passion for your topic and what it's going to be about, then I don't want to take up my time or waste yours. So I'm looking for people who are really serious about this. They're not quite ready to spend thousands of dollars and quit their day jobs, but they're serious about what they're passionate about. You're serious about what you're passionate about, and you want to start a hobbyist podcast, not necessarily to make money, at least in the short term, or maybe never, but a passion project that could generate a little side revenue in the future if you do get enough listenership, but you're not necessarily attached to it replacing your job, but you have a passion for it. Tell me what that is, what you want a podcast about, and then we can set up a 15-minute free consult. I can give you kind of the quick start guide and make sure that you help niche it. And then from there, we can talk about, after you get launched, we can talk about, really taking it to the next level. And I can share with you how I got 1,000 listeners per month. I think that's a reasonable goal, right? If you can get 1,000, 10,000 people listening to your podcast, get 1,000 per month, that's something I was able to do on my own. So I could help share with you how to do that. And so just put your info below. And if I think that there's a real passion there, I'll reach back out to you and we can help you get started with your podcast.